So why don't we get started here?
Okay.
Hopefully,
Get on my agenda.
Come in as they can. Welcome to the regular September meeting of the Charlottesville Police and Oversight Board. Do we have any announcements, perhaps? I would like to make a quick shout out. If you have not had a chance to check out the PCOB library, do so.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
It is superb. In fact, the city manager mentioned it in a very glowing review of his performance this year. Anyway. We have, as I understand it, 2 sets of minutes to approve. Is that correct, Council?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the June minutes and the ones for August.
Are there any comments on the minutes? Oh, Cynthia. Oh, sorry.
Chair, before you proceed on business, I wondered if you still care to entertain a motion to amend the agenda in accordance with our discussion this afternoon, or you and Hansel resolve?
That's the next element, next thing on the agenda.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry.
We'll be there in a second.
My bad.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes? Nice. 2 hands.
I make a motion.
Second?
Okay.
Mr. Eckler?
Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Carpenter? Member Cooper?
Yes.
Member Frazier?
Yes.
Member Gilmore? Member or Chair Mendez?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Watson?
Yes.
Okay, so the minutes are approved with thanks. Now, Ms. Hudson, our independent counsel, has requested that she be given some time on the agenda to explain to us the new SOP related to FOIA that the City Council has, or that he and Lisa Robertson have developed for boards and panels. I had originally was promised to go right away, but I understand that Mr. Jackson is here. Do you mind waiting a few minutes, Mr. Jackson? A few minutes longer? Okay.
I don't mind.
So I could entertain an agenda to amend, entertain a motion to amend the agenda to allow statement by Cynthia Hudson as the next item.
I make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Aguilar?
Okay, the motion to amend the agenda. Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Cooper?
Yes.
Member Frazier?
Yes.
Chair Mendez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Watson?
Yes.
All right, in that case, Cynthia, turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chair Mendez. If I might have permission to share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. Good evening, board members. I've asked to amend the agenda this evening to take up this item very quickly at the request of the city attorney's office. The council this week, in compliance or to meet and address amendments to the Freedom of Information Act that became effective September 1 rather than July 1, like most amendments to state statutes, addressing electronic meetings and participation by members of public bodies remotely in their meetings through electronic means. The city council, according to Lisa, authorized by vote the city attorney, city manager, and city clerk to develop a revised electronic meetings policy to meet those changes in state law. And what you have before you on the shared screen here is in that policy in draft form. But because this board, and this policy applies to all city boards, and those are defined as boards that are created by council action and whose appointees are all made by the city council, which of course then includes within that ambit this board. So with that application and this board being the first to meet after that decision by city council and after the effective date of these statutory changes, city attorney's office was very legitimately concerned that this board take up and know about, even though it's still in draft form until the city manager can execute this policy, that you take this up this evening. And I'm going to just kind of walk you through this very quickly. Much of the policy in its current form and in these initial procedures addresses for city boards matters of logistics, such as the frequency, timing, and location of meetings and administrative staff support for meetings. And I commend you, refer you to what I understand is copies of this policy that each of you have received in order to review those logistical and procedural elements of the policy. The ones that I necessarily want to make sure that I go over with you tonight have to do with electronic meetings, either all electronic meetings or all virtual, as the phrase is used, or those by which or in which individual council members, board members may participate remotely. So I'm going to scroll down to first the definition of an all virtual meeting in this policy, which, as you likely already know, refers to a city board meeting, including any subcommittees of the board at which the members attending the meeting gather or assemble in their entirety through electronic communication means, such as we are doing right now. And of course, where the purpose of the gathering or the meeting is the discussion of the business of that public body, and in this case, this board. And all public attendance and participation in the meeting is likewise conducted electronically. The policy specifies that all virtual meetings have to be conducted in compliance with the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act, and those requirements are set out in an exhibit to this policy that we will scroll through in just a moment. Unlike the city council and certain other public bodies, which by amendment of the statute are not authorized to conduct all electronic meetings except in states of emergency, public boards such as this board may meet in an all virtual capacity at its election, at your choice. The policy also addresses administrative support for such all virtual meetings. You also have the option to meet in person. And the policy defines an in-person meeting, as you might expect, as to a meeting at which members of the city board, including any committees or subcommittees, gather or assemble together physically in one location for the purpose of conducting or transacting public business in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Now, it is in these meetings, in-person meetings, where certain changes to state law regarding individual participation by remote means in an otherwise in-person meeting have been changed to some degree. And this policy, still in draft form, fully expected, in my understanding by Lisa, to be executed by the city manager, specifies that you as individuals may participate remotely in an in-person meeting where everyone else is otherwise assembled in person physically in one location under certain circumstances that are set forth in this policy, and again, that are dictated by state law. An individual desiring to use remote participation to participate in an otherwise in-person meeting has to notify the chair of the board by email, stating the basis on which they satisfy at least one of the criteria where remote participation is allowed. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Under the city policy, the chair of the board is to verify that the criteria for remote participation are satisfied. And if that request is approved, then the chair is responsible for ensuring that the minutes of the meeting in which the individual is participating remotely identify by general description the location from which the member participated. And that can be stated in general terms, such as member's residence. And also has to make sure that the minutes reflect that the reason that was given for participating remotely rather than being there in person. If it's disapproved, the request to participate remotely in an in-person meeting, the chair would have made that action, is also responsible for making sure that that disapproval and the reason for it is reflected in the minutes. No member of a city board, including this one, may use remote participation due to, well, let's talk a little bit first about the reasons that you can participate remotely. And these are set forth. Let me just make sure that I'm getting to the right place. Sorry, I didn't skip it.
I didn't see any examples set forth before.
The criteria on which an individual may participate remotely are as follows. You may participate remotely for, quote unquote, and this is in the statute, personal reasons that prevent you from attending the meeting, examples of which may be family commitments or business commitments. You may also participate remotely if the meeting is being held in person in a location that is a remote distance from your home, such that travel issues make it difficult for you to attend that particular meeting. You may also participate remotely if you are suffering from a medical condition of your own, or if your presence is necessary to care for a family member who has a medical condition. Those are the limitations on the bases for individual remote participation. And with respect to participation for the personal reasons I described, such as conflicting family events, conflicting business commitments, and the like, there is a limitation on how often that basis for individual remote participation may be used. That limitation is twice a year or 25% of the number of meetings of the body, rounded to the next highest whole number, whichever is greater. So obviously if you meet 12 times a year, once a month, then a quarter of those meetings, the number is 3, which is greater than 2. So individual remote participation on a legitimate basis as approved by the chair would be permitted 3 times a year for any individual in that situation. And that's what's stated here. No member of a city board may use remote participation due to personal matters. There is no such, except under those limitations. There are no such limitations with respect to the other bases, such as medical care needs for either yourself or a family member. As the statute requires, the policy specifies that its requirements must be applied uniformly with respect to all member requests, with no variation based on who the member is who's requesting, and no variation based on the subject matter of the meeting at which remote participation is requested. Now, the exhibit to, excuse me, this policy sets forth the logistical requirements for holding all virtual meetings, such as the one we're having now by Zoom, where no one is physically assembled that constitutes a quorum. And it goes through again in terms of the substance of such a notice. The required meeting notice has to state that it's all virtual and include a statement notifying the public of the method by which the board is going to allow public participation, much as you do largely right now, I believe. The city is going to promulgate a standard form for the all virtual meeting notices so that all of the city boards are providing notice in the same manner. Public access must be provided via electronic communications. The city will designate a host trained by the Office of Communications to manage the electronic transmission of the meeting. Of course, whatever electronic communications means that is used has to be one by which all members of the board can be heard and by the public. And there must also be a record kept in the meeting of the manner in which the meeting was held. Phone number or other live contact information under this policy has to be provided to the public so that they may alert the public body as to when the transmission fails, if it fails, and certain steps must be taken to pause the meeting in order to address any failure of transmission that disrupts public access and public participation. If the all virtual meeting is a meeting at which public comment is customarily received, the public will be afforded the opportunity to comment through electronic means as you have become accustomed to doing. And that could be verbally, as again, you have traditionally done, or by way of written comments, including through the availability of the chat function in the electronic meeting platform that will satisfy this requirement. Agenda packets and materials, a copy of the proposed agenda for the all virtual meeting, the agenda packet, and unless they're exempt from public disclosure, all materials that are furnished to you as members for an all virtual meeting have to be made available to the public in electronic format at the same time that they're made available to the members. And this can be done by posting on the city's website, for instance, as I believe you presently do. No more than 2 members of the board, if it's an all virtual meeting, may be physically assembled together in any single remote location. Because as you know, any gathering in one physical location of more than 2 of you constitutes a meeting in and of itself. So you're choosing in this circumstance to meet in an all virtual format and foregoing a physical assemblage in-person meeting. Closed sessions. If there's a closed session held during an all virtual public meeting, the motion to convene in closed session has to be made and approved before the public is excluded pursuant to the closed session motion. And the certification after the conclusion of the closed session, the certification of the propriety of the closed session must be made after transmission to the public has been resumed. And finally, minutes of all virtual meetings must be taken if they are otherwise required by FOIA, and typically they would be for this board, provided that minutes for an all virtual meeting must include a statement that the meeting was held by all electronic means and specify the type. That covers it. I understand from Lisa that this policy is expected to be adopted in its present form, or rather, I should say, executed by the manager to be made effective in its present form. And again, with the PCOB being the first city board to meet following that directive of the council, the city attorney's office wants to make sure that you are aware of these and to seek your consensus or your vote with respect to compliance with these pending their final execution by the city manager. And with that, I will stop scrolling and turn the baton back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it sounds like that, there are very, very few changes as long as they're all virtual.
You're breaking up a bit.
I'm sorry, I do have this problem. Unsel, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted Ms. Hudson to get some clarity on because it states any committee or subcommittee. So, but then you stated the more than 2 members. So right now the board members, they have at least a few 2-person committees. Would, if they meet together for the purposes of this, or is it still, if it's at least 2 of them, is it considered a meeting, or is it, there seems like there's some conflict there because it says any committee, but then there's the language about 2 or more, or
Well,
more than 2
I'm-
rather.
I understand it. And if we're talking about a meeting of a committee, that committee is meeting as a committee and not as the PCOB. Lisa and I talked about this today, and the matter of whether or not, for instance, meetings of committees formed by the board that are made up of board members constitute a meeting for purposes, for instance, of the limitation on the number of meetings in which a member can participate electronically. And your question, if am I right, Hansel, that your question goes to this language regarding all virtual meetings where it says that no more than 2 members may be physically assembled together when the board is attempting to meet all in an all virtual format? Is that where that came up for you?
Well, I think earlier on it says for the purpose of these procedures, the term city boards is used as a shorthand reference, which the term means it refers to any board, commission, or committee created by city council. So would a committee created by the board be considered? And this, I think, it's all the way in the top under
Yeah, I just
4
need you to direct
procedures.
me back to the language. Yeah.
Yeah, section 4 procedures A.
Okay. For the purpose of these procedures, the term city boards. My understanding is that, well, and this is what is true. The board is a public body,
Right,
of course, and so is a committee created by the board, a public body. And this is saying that this policy applies both to the board proper as well as to committees created by the board.
Well, this, if I may, I mean, this sort of the 2-member rule disappeared. Because now, anytime a 2-member committee meets, we have to accept public comments, and we have to do minutes, and we have to post the meeting. Is that what that means?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
This policy references repeatedly Freedom of Information Act requirements. And if the Freedom of Information Act requires public, well, certainly it's going to require public notice of any meeting of any public body, whether we're talking about a committee of this board or whether or not we're talking about the board in toto. It does not necessarily carry with it, in terms of committee meetings, all of the other requirements of FOIA. We would need to look at FOIA specifically to determine whether or not the type or nature of committee meeting that is being held triggers all of the requirements of FOIA that apply to the board in full. I would expect that most of them do.
Ms. Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
this reading appears to be, is this implicit or explicit? Because it doesn't explicitly say that the subcommittees, that this would apply to the subcommittees. It's specifically saying created by city council.
I'm sorry, let me make sure I'm looking at it carefully enough.
I think arguably a committee that we create is not created by the city council.
I think that's absolutely right. That does not mean, however, that it's not a public body that nevertheless has some FOIA compliance requirements. Using city boards as shorthand here means exactly what Lisa and the city manager have worked out here. So tonight I'm speaking more specifically to the board in toto as contemplated by this language, because you are a board created by the city council with all of your members appointed by the city council. this does not purport directly, based on this language, as you said, to speak to the procedures to be followed by committees that you create.
Hansel?
And I could certainly clarify that with Lisa. So is that the point you were making, Hansel?
It is, and that also concerns me for under frequency of meetings, because if their subcommittees or their committees are considered a body in and of themselves, then they're only entitled to one meeting a month, and that logistically is they're not going to be able to do much work, especially also when we consider their hearings. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to work properly under this set of procedures if the board is receiving multiple review requests and they're only allowed to do one meeting per month. Is there any wiggle room there for those?
Let's go back to those logistical parts of the procedure. As I mentioned in the introductory comments, I was focusing on the changes that are dictated by law. And those are the changes relating to the manner and the circumstances in which members may participate remotely through electronic means in an in-person meeting, and the procedures that relate to your conduct of all electronic meetings. The Section 1, Section 3, Section 4, and in particular, some of these logistics around the frequency of meetings are not FOIA dictated, but they are procedural proposals that the city manager and the city attorney's office have determined are necessary based on the availability of city facilities, based on the availability of city staff that supports meetings. And we can certainly talk further about those aspects of this policy. But my marching orders from Lisa were to make sure that you all were in agreement to comply with the FOIA related legal requirements of this policy. These obviously will be legal requirements in that they have been sanctioned by the City Council of Charlottesville, and the city manager and city attorney have been authorized to develop this policy and to enforce it. But again, that was not the thrust of my presentation tonight. If you'd like to go over this in more detail, we can start from the top. And then you can raise your questions that I will be glad to share with Lisa, or that you can directly, Hansel, such as the one about frequency of meetings.
Yeah, I'm not sure, you know, we have a very large agenda tonight. I don't know if we can go into all that much detail.
Yeah, I didn't think that you had allotted that much time for it, and that was not my intent to address.
No, I understand that. It's, you know, so this is it verbatim, do you think? I mean, or is it liable to there going to be revisions? And if there are going to be revisions, why don't we wait until you revise it and promulgate it, or until Lisa revises it and promulgates it, and then we can go on record, you know, acknowledge it.
Absolutely understand that, but let me say this: if, based on the questions that have arisen about the logistical Charlottesville City Council-based components of this, such as frequency of meetings, location of meetings, staff support of meetings, if that's where the questions are and where you want to hold off with respect to whether or not you want to see if there will be further revisions, I think this could be bifurcated, and you could put those in the parking lot, so to speak, on the basis that you just described, and then still, again, like I said, frequency of meetings, location of meetings, those are city space for meetings, those kinds of things, use of city council chambers, but types of meetings, in person and all virtual. From this point forward, this policy addresses legal requirements that became effective September 1. So it's not a matter of whether or not you agree with them or not. I do not expect that those will be changed, because most of them are right out of the statute.
Yeah, and then I'm still a little confused as to what kind of action we're expecting to take.
But it's, you know, obviously whatever the place of the board is.
Yeah, the city is dictating is writing and requiring it of all boards. And so if we disapproved it, it wouldn't have any force.
No, and
anyway.
it's not a matter of you approving it tonight. And Lisa has indicated all she was seeking tonight was to make sure you were aware of the changes that were dictated by the amendments to the Freedom of Information Act, which begin here, and that you would indicate your pleasure with respect to not you would be complying with those legal changes, those legal procedures from this point forward, pending final execution of this policy by the city manager. I know that makes this cumbersome, awkward, but I do believe that it could be split in that fashion, that you could entertain a motion as to whether or not the board agrees to comply with the Freedom of Information Act changes as reflected in this meeting, as reflected in the policy that's before you. That would then leave you free to engage with the city attorney with respect to the questions you have about the non-Freedom of Information Act dictated components, if I'm making sense.
Melanie, you look like you're getting restless and you got something you want to say.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think, Ms. Hudson, would I be correct in this is not necessarily an ask. This is what it is.
You're going to be bound, but you're going to be bound by these legal changes in particular because state law dictates them. There's no question about that. Now, if you think you can influence what the city manager and the city attorney have in here about frequency of meetings, location, city staff, use of particular conference rooms, those kinds of things, which the state code does not speak to, then, you know, I leave that to your efforts to address those things with the city manager and the city attorney, which is why, again, I have only been tasked with seeking your response to a request as to whether or not you are prepared to comply with the changes that were dictated by FOIA as I described.
I make a motion to comply.
Second.
I just had a quick comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I mean, none of this strikes me as that onerous. I mean, it seems to me that we would defer to the city manager and the city attorney, and I would second Mr. Brown's motion to adopt it as written.
Any other comment? Mr. Aguilar?
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Cooper,
Yes.
Member Frazier,
Yes.
Chair Mendez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watson. Thank you.
He may be signed off, Mr. Aguilar,
Okay.
temporarily.
Okay. But there is much worse news, and that is the producing involvement with the PCOB. And
I'm sorry.
I'm very sorry to hear that. And I want to thank her very much for her hard work.
I think you broke up there, Bill. Could you repeat what you just said?
Yes, it's just Ms. It's okay. Can I say it, Cynthia? I mean,
I don't mind. I think they're just having trouble with your transmission. Is
yeah,
all.
and I'm doing my best. I don't know what is wrong with my transmission. Ms. Hudson is not retiring, but reducing her involvement with the PCOB, more time with her grandchildren, her mother. And I want to thank her very much for her involvement and tell her not to be a stranger.
Not at all. And I'm so glad I leave you in good hands. And just to be clear, I'm not simply reducing my involvement with the PCOB. I'm shrinking my legal practice. I'm taking my VRS retirement at the end of the month and going to just decide how I want to be re-engaged in practice at this point. You guys are absolutely one of my favorite clients. I will say that. And it's because when you've been practicing for 30 years, it's the clients whose subject matter issues and legal issues present you with the most distinct and unique challenges that keep you going and keep you energized around the work. And you all have definitely done that, and all toward, you know, good, laudable public policy goals. And you're so dedicated. I appreciate working for dedicated public servants and have been glad to do it. But you will be in excellent hands with my colleague at SANS, Pamela Berry, and Cullen, who I think you all have come to know over the last several months as well. So thank you.
Cynthia, real quick comment. If you've been practicing 30 years, did you start your law practice in middle school?
Elementary school, actually.
Elementary school, okay. I was just a couple years off.
All right, okay.
Cynthia, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I could have him, Cynthia, I want to thank you personally for guiding the ship, guiding me in my role as chair over some difficult times last year.
We pulled it out though, Bellamy. We did okay.
No, so I very much appreciate your guidance, and I hope you enjoy reevaluating in your grandchildren.
You'll see me around, so don't say goodbye. Just say see you later. And Mr.
All right,
Brown,
see you later.
Mr. Jackson, rather. I'm sorry we're infringing on your time. I didn't know that Mr. Mendez was going to bring this up, so my apologies.
Okay. All right. So let us move on. I believe the next item is public comment. Mr. Aguilar, could you poll the attendees?
Sure. So for the public's benefit, we're now entering into the public comment section. Just bear with me. I'm looking for the magic language. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'd like to speak to the PCOB, please click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. If you're joining us via telephone, press *9. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes. Please share your place of residence when you begin. We have one person. I am going to allow her to talk. Ms. Kate Freely, you're on with the board.
Thank you. I'm sorry I've been absent for so many months. And thank you for your hard work in getting all sorts of policies and procedures and the hearing and all those things done. And I'm looking forward to the next steps, which would be some more attention to policy and disproportionality and disparity in policing. So I just read a new report that said that in the first 3 months, the first quarter of 2022, we're still having a population of not quite 20% Black, but arrests are 50%. So it seems to me we gotta do some addressing of that. That's number one. And number two was I'm concerned a little and am interested in hearing about the upcoming event that is organized by the Virginia Police Department. And I imagine you know my concern has to do with the fact that I think Mr. Longo is still the head of safety at the University of Virginia, and I imagine he might be speaking there, and he's not well received in the community here because of the DNA forced, practically, not exactly forced, but almost forced DNA sampling of African-American men, Hannah Graham's versus Sage Smith's searches, and the behavior of the UVA police in August 2017. So I don't support him, and I would hope that you all don't support him either. The third thing is my concern about the talk of 21st century policing and the hiring of the new police chief. The 21st century policing report came out in 2016, and lots of the recommendations were to do research, and some research has been done, and some of the recommendations they made have turned out not to be productive or efficient or successfully answering the problem they addressed. So I'm a little concerned that we throw that term around. People on the city council have been throwing it around, saying they really want a police chief who supports 21st century policing. That report, but that report is old, and a lot of new things have been tried, and a lot of research has been done since then. That and I can do a list at some point about the parts of it that have been shown to be problematic. So that's all I have to say. I look forward to, I'm excited that you all are doing this outreach and doing tabling at these events at Washington Park and at Ix. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I see no additional hands.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gurley. So the next item on the agenda is the outreach. Vice Chair Watson, it is up to me to welcome Mr. From Love. I understand that you have some good, useful things to tell us. You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Is that my cue?
Yes, sorry.
I couldn't hear you. You were breaking up a lot. But first and foremost, like, thank you guys for taking the time to have me be a part of this and part of the PCOB. Just able to share my insight and connect with you guys and the greater good of serving Charlottesville. Really quick, I won't take too much of your time. A little background on me. I'm originally from Buckingham County. I grew up very familiar with Charlottesville. Live here now in the city. Lived here since 2012. But like I said, Charlottesville was the place that we came as country folks, being way back in the sticks in Buckingham. So former college athlete, former music artist. I lived all over the country, personal trainer. Education-wise, undergrad in radio broadcast and journalism, master's in psychology, second master's in organizational development leadership, author, quite a few other things. But I just kind of say all that to kind of give you a representation of who I am, what I stand for. Most importantly, I'm the founder of the Love No Ego Foundation. Love No Ego Foundation serves the youth and young adults in this community and beyond. And in a nutshell, I won't give you the mission, but in a nutshell, helps them live more from this space than they do that space, you know? So igniting their human intuition, while also bringing their awareness up of the egotistical influences of the world and helping them to develop a foundation within that's not easily shaken. I'm a big believer in, as a psychology major, double psychology major, I'm a big believer in human behavior. I feel if you can influence a person or community to embrace a message, to embrace each other, you can really change human behavior. And once you change human behavior, I think that solves a lot of problems. Everything that we've ever learned, good or bad, came from other humans. It's the root of all good and all bad is human behavior. That's what I feel about it. You can change all the laws, you can change the policies. Very important, yes, because that's what we created, and it's always going to change. You know, we're going to have to fight that battle. But when you really can reach the people and really promote and provoke that change from the inside, that intuition, harder said than done, but when we come together, I think it's a lot easier. As long as we stay divided, you know, we just can't grab a hold of that dream. But that's where I come in, and the Love No Ego Foundation comes in. Me as a person and speaker and mentor, I travel and I speak and I conduct workshops. I do presentations with the corporate world as well, about ego in the workplace, about ego in the community, boosting the morale of the environment, changing the frequency and the energy and the vibration of a workplace, of a school, of a community. I think that's what we're here to do anyway. I think that's our natural and foremost first goal as a human being. Everything else is secondary. But to sum it all up here and bring it into why I'm really here, I proposed a very, very, very rough draft. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but it's very rough. Rough draft of bringing sort of a peace building conference, multi-event to Charlottesville. Of course, I think big. I think the biggest venue here is King Pavilion, where the police department would be involved, you guys would be involved, and those influencers from the community would be involved. And also everyday community members would be involved, part of that process. Imagine a 6-month, twice a month event, 1st and 15th, where we come together and bridge that gap between Charlottesville Police Department and the community. Where we come together and remove, like I'm not just talking about reduce, like I'm talking about remove, like fear, remove the judgment, remove the biases, how people have workshops that follow up to those speaking engagements first or presentations 1st and 15th, workshops that follow up to that, behind that. And we implement these practices and these pillars to help them go beyond these subcategories and minute levels of life and really get into being and to really serve. And like, we've never felt what it feels like to come together, like, as human beings. We might have felt it on a smaller scale, but I think the biggest crime is for us not to feel what it feels like to be human. Like we've never felt that. And that's a shame. And my mission, my personal mission, and what I feel is in my heart is to do everything I can to change that, whether it's on the small scale and have that grow into the bigger scale. But I mean, it's worked magic in my personal life. And I feel like if I can help, it doesn't have to be called Love No Ego. I don't care what it's called. As long as we can come together and do the work, we can come together and really, again, just work on improving those relationships and the overall energy between the police department and the community. And of course, I think of no other than a message like Love No Ego, because for me, it sums it up. It tells everything that we're naturally born to do and be here on this earth. So if we can get the community behind this, like I really think we can shift and change the vibration of it all. Like I really do. I have a proposal that I've edited and I've added some things to. I'll be glad to share with each of all of you. But that's my spiel pretty much. And I can conclude it by saying that once we're able to ignite the cities and the citizens, the spirits and the intuitions of the people, I sound like such a Martin Luther King type, but it's true. It works. Like it works. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we've never taken that much energy that we put into, I feel like, this is my personal opinion, we've never taken this much energy that we put into laws and policy and changes to putting it into people. Like I don't think we've ever done that. And for us not to do that is the biggest waste of life that we can do. That's my opinion. So I just want to be of service. The Love No Ego Foundation, we work with schools, youth and young adults ages 10 to 24, and we do professional speaking. We have a mentoring program. We do fitness and wellness. All of us are board, team, certified personal trainers, yoga teachers, fitness enthusiasts. And we do our own special workshops and events. And we want to work on the whole person. We want to work on the whole kid. Me and a few others that are in training, have completed training, we travel and speak. Like I said, the corporate world calls. Some of the clients include Apex Clean Energy, UVA Physicians Clinic, Physicians Group. A lot of corporate folks are calling now because, you know, the whole diversity, equity, inclusion thing is getting bigger since 2020. And they see Love No Ego and they're like, whoa, let's put that in here. But as far as the proposal, I'll be glad to share with you guys, share the pillars and the principles and the strategies all behind that behavior change. Because again, at the end of the day, you know, it's really about igniting the people, influencing that behavior change, removing those barriers, those limitations so people can be comfortable, having those policies aligned with human dignity, and honestly, having the people in there that has the courage to connect with the people. I think that's big. I could go on, but I don't want to waste too much of you guys' time, and I appreciate you guys having me here. So I'll put some things in the chat and you guys can view and check out. I'll put my email there as well. I've been talking with James and Hansel, so I'm praying that we can come together and allow love to do what it does. Thank you.
We really appreciate you, man. I'm sorry everybody had to drop off for a quick work meeting, but I got in and out real fast. But yeah, the work that Freddie is doing is priceless. I always tell him that, you know, you'll be walking around Charlottesville and you'll see one of his big vans, you know, and he's giving, you know, kids rides to places and making sure homework gets done and just providing a group of positive role models, conflict resolution options. Very, you know, he's very well connected with, as he said, a variety of the nonprofits like Boys and Girls Club, YMCA. Did a really great basketball clinic this past weekend with Sean Singletary, with the kids, and just, you know, the man just has so much love in his heart, you know, and I feel like the mission that we have, you know, him working with 10 to 24-year-olds, it really lines up because many of those same kids probably historically, you know, would also be profiled by police. And again, that's not saying all police are bad or profile, but, you know, we want to kind of hear from them as well and figure out, you know, ideas that can make this community a more healthy place to live, more vibrant, more opportunity. And so, you know, Freddie does have a proposal. And just in general, you may have said it already, but, you know, we're looking at possibly the springtime, facilitating some events in a couple of the city parks, accessible by transit, and you know, pedestrian accessible, where we can bring the community together, hear what people are thinking, what they're feeling. Love No Ego as an organization has done a lot of, as he said, you know, facilitation in corporate settings, nonprofits, and a lot of schools in the area. And so I think, you know, this partnership can really help us connect. A lot of us, you know, we get off of work and we turn on TV and then we're asleep 2 or 3 hours later. Not, you know, I think Deshaw's the one young guy in the crew here. And so, you know, we're not all as dialed in and, you know, to exactly what's going on. I try to be, but my daughter laughs at me. But but no, it's I think really great, endless possibilities. And again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. And if you don't mind, let me add something real quick as far as like our partners. We have the Charlottesville Department of Social Services, Albemarle County Department of Social Services, different organizations around the city we partner with. They use our mentors. We have a group of 10 mentors now. They use our mentors to help bridge that gap for them. It's easier to say that the organizations that we haven't partnered with than the ones that we have. But just to name some of those ongoing and continuous, definitely City of Promise and Department of Social Services, again, Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville, and just being a bridge to help, being a bridge to help the youth and young adults be their best selves, which has now catapulted into the corporate world and just blossomed into the community for all people. And that's what brings me here today. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This may be breaking the agenda. I don't have it up right in front of me, but did anybody have any questions for Mr. Jackson?
Give me some questions. I like questions.
No, I don't have any questions. I just want to say that I, appreciate everything that that Freddie does in our community. We've, crossed paths a couple times, and so and I'm familiar with a lot of the work that he does. So I echo, what James and he are trying to bring together on behalf of the city, and I think that that proposal that he had spoken about, if it's possibly implemented, it could potentially have that positive effect overall, and that would be something as a community that I believe would be good for us and be nice to see. And I think that there are loud perceptions of the community and the policing as a whole, and then there are a number of what I've found outnumbered quiet perceptions, and I think that there is an appetite across the board to bring the community together as a whole, and really look at what's really going on, and try to move things forward from that perspective. So thank you, Freddie, for all that you're doing.
Okay, I have signed in by phone. Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. The next item on our agenda, and thank you very much, Mr. Jackson, is this set of upcoming events. I don't know if James or Hansel was going to take us through them.
Hansel, can you speak on the can you speak on those events?
Sure. So these are events that I assume that there's interest to the board. The first one is the event that what community member spoke about that is being organized by University Police. This one, I believe, Vice Chair Watson, you found out about this event, is titled "The Aristotle's Double-Headed Coin and History of Law Enforcement." And it's going to focus on how law enforcement has impacted diverse cultures and communities here locally. It is also going to feature one of our own staff members from City Hall, Ms. Teresa Polak, as a member of the Monacan Nation. She has been very actively involved, and she's going to be one of the speakers to talk about how law enforcement has impacted communities as such. There's also an element where they'll be talking about how law enforcement has historically impacted the African-American community in the county and in the city. So that, I believe that the interest or the reason why it is there is because it is law enforcement related. It's an event where community members can go and learn about these relationships in the community. It is a 3-day event, and the link is listed there if you're interested in signing up. The next one is Civil Sabroso, which is it's organized by Sin Barreras, our colleagues at the Human Rights Office. Victoria was a former staff at Sin Barreras, and she has secured a table and is inviting us to attend and to participate to table at the event. It is the kickoff of the Hispanic Heritage Month in September 15th. So this is within that time from September 15th to October 15th. It's when that month is celebrated. So if you're interested in tabling for that event, please send me an email. I'll send a reminder. If you're interested in signing up, please let me know. We still have some giveaways from the ones we secured for Soul Seaville and for the backpacking event that we had the week prior or a few weeks back. Mr. Watson, you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, if you wanted to go through all the, if you want to go through all the bullets first, I can make my comment when you're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So the following event after that is on September 18th. Is at X Park again. It is a Pride Festival, a tabling event celebrating Charlottesville's LGBTQIA community plus community. It is organized by Seville Pride. It's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our friends at the Human Rights Office are also going to be there. They have already secured a table, so we could tag along with them as well. And the last event of interest within this upcoming month is the Black Business Expo, which is on September 24th at X Park from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we have already signed up for that one as well.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say is the back to school bash. That was a really phenomenal event. There was one that we were part of, and there was another one that was pretty awesome as well that occurred. The back to school bash, provides area kids school supplies, right? Like many of us don't think about the fact that maybe there's some people that don't have pencils in book bags and things like that. So we were part of that. Couple weekends back, we were there. Freddie was there with his group as well. And I don't know how many thousand people showed up, but it was really nice at the amphitheater downtown. And that allowed us to really meet people. A lot of people came by. We need to get a little bit more, I don't know if I want to call it swag, but maybe signage, some other things. So we're not just a couple of folks at a table, but giving people at least the cups and some of the other things. And they were really curious about the board, what we do, who we are. And we were able to, explain that. And then, of course, when you have something in your house that you're using over and over, it kind of makes people think, okay, yeah, these people do exist. And then I got to see a lot of folks I've known in Charlottesville for years, too, particularly at the Soul of Seaville event. Looking out at these events that you just mentioned, the Civo Sabroso and the Pride Fest and Black Business Expo, we definitely will need folks to raise their hand and come out there and be part of it on this board. I think the 17th, I'm going to try to run a 5K on that day, so we'll see. But yeah, if we can get a couple more folks to volunteer and just come out and sit for a few hours and meet the community, learn about what's going on, that'll be great, because I think we need to let the Black Business Expo know pretty soon. And it sounds like you said, Hansel, they've already got a table for us at the Civo Sabroso. So if we just want to make sure we got folks that'll that can do it. And the other thing, the weather's nicer now too, because when we did the Soul of Seaville, it was like 100 degrees outside, and the other one we did was pretty hot. But I love Charlottesville in the fall, festivals and great weather and leaves. So these will be really nice events to connect with the community. Thank you.
Well, we should contact Consult, let him know when we're coming, which event. But Sabroso means good taste, right? It means tastes good, means delicious. Is that what it sort of? I expect there to be a lot of good food. Okay, just checking. Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All righty.
But yeah, I think that's our, anybody have any questions or ideas or comments about the community outreach? No, all right, well,
I think it's, I mean, it's a lot of events, and I mean, there'll be a couple that I'll pop up at. But yeah, it's a great effort from, I guess, where we were before. So, yeah.
All right. So now I believe it's time for the executive director's report. Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just bear with me. I'm pulling up the report. Okay. So the first item on the executive reports is the neutral valuation for the Mr. Fogel case. As we mentioned at the last meeting, there will be a neutral valuation. There will be no hearing for that. The documents relating to that particular case, they are already uploaded in the website. So if you want to access them, and for any members of the public that wants to access them, you go under PCOB cases. It'll have the name of the case listed there, and it'll have any documents relating to that particular case, any the memorandums I provided to the board, the resolutions that the board passed, the alternative dispute resolution agreement signed by the parties, and the final report will go there. So that's available now in the website for the public's review, and feel free to access it. Regarding oversight activity, we haven't received any initial complaints or review requests since your last meeting, and we did have a modified schedule, so it's only a few weeks since we last met. There were no compliments received by the board since the last meeting, and again, that information is publicly available now as well in the data section of the portal, so you can at any time go to the portal and be able to identify whether new compliments or complaints have been received. I'm still working on the data migration. It's going to take me a little bit. Right now, the priorities are the neutral valuation, which I should be having by the end of the month. For the pending review requests, that is something that I included it again for your consideration. You have two complainants that have requested reviews. One was received in October of 2021, so we're approaching the year mark. In that particular matter, there was an individual who had a dispute with his neighbors, contacted the CPD. The officer that showed up did not, in the complainant's observation, did not provide him proper service and left almost immediately without talking to him. The complainant filed a report about that demeanor of the officer. Internal Affairs, he tried to show Internal Affairs a video footage that he recorded from the incident. Internal Affairs, according to the complainant, refused to review the video, and he felt that the investigation was incomplete because Internal Affairs did not review the video footage that he had. He did indicate when I spoke with him last year that he was interested in mediation, but as that's still being resolved, this may be another case that could potentially be resolved with another alternative dispute resolution mechanism, depending on where we are with that process. The other complaint review request that you have, you've heard about it last month at the meeting, and you approved to extend to accept the complaints. So now there were 3 separate complaints that were filed by that particular individual who's being represented by Ms. Teresa Helpler. At this time, I have not inquired if there's any interest from the party on having informal resolution for that particular case. Okay. In the website, I have also posted any of the board resolutions. I did forward the resolution for the logo to the city attorney. It's unclear right now when that will be placed on the city council agenda. And there's also the resolution seeking if the city council could approve the auditing that they requested back in 2019. It's unclear right now whether that will make it to the agenda or at what time it'll make it to the agenda. The next item on under the executive director's report is the progress on the hiring a new chief. As the city manager announced in his report, he has conducted some stakeholder meetings. I was not present for that. I did inquire whether the board or the executive director will have any further role in the selection of the chief of police. He said a final decision has not been made at this time. So we're waiting to hear back to see what role the board, if any, will have in that. I did want to add, though, at one point I was asked to participate, at least in the procurement process for the company that received, the firm that received the contract to search, and I provided my input there. There was also some engagement by the city manager for me to have input on the questions that they will use for the panel interview. I provided my feedback on that. I'm not sure what exactly the final questions will be for that panel interview. Chair Mendez, I see your hand.
Yeah, but certainly I think, we would like to have some more input into this. Yeah, I think we're a fairly important group of stakeholders. What should I just notify the city manager that we would like to be at the table? Are they still conducting these kind of stakeholder input sessions?
I'm not sure what the status is. I did inform him before we entered into this process that the board was interested in having some input in that. I know that's something that the board had expressed previously. He said that he would have some public engagement one way or another. It is not clear right now what the role of the board will be or the executive director beyond what I expressed at this time. So if you're interested, feel free to contact the city manager directly, or I can pass along the message as well.
Yeah, I'll shoot him an email. Thank you.
Okay. The other item on the for my section is office space and hours. The city manager's office is responsible for space allocations. That is within their purview. When I entered this role, I was informed that we would take over the Human Rights Office once they were placed in a new office. At some point, there was discussion about us taking over the office that's being housed by the recruitment department of the police department. It's not in the headquarters proper. It's in the city mall in one of the buildings there. It is unclear to me at this point which space is being considered for the board. And I informed the city manager that the board would like to have some input, but the information I got that it was that the city manager is responsible for space allocation. And so I'm not sure if the final decision is being made ultimately by him without input from the board, but I did bring it up to him that board members would like to have some input where the office space for the board will go.
Yeah, and
I see some hands. I could take questions or comments now, or I'm not sure.
All right. Well, I just had to, I don't know if Bill was saying something in it, maybe his sound. Actually, let me get my video back on, but I guess his sound messed up. But I'm a big proponent of trying to establish an office if we can in the Jefferson School. That would be a great location. So
I've actually surveyed the rec center and the Jefferson school.
might need to call back in.
Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry.
You might need to call in again. I don't know, man. Your wires.
Yeah, I have. I
Phone on your cell phone or do Zoom on your cell phone?
I'll try again on the cell phone.
In the interim, Mr. Aguilar, I saw in your report that there was a notation regarding approval for a management analyst. Do you know what the budget numbers are for that?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was gonna get to that. I didn't know if you wanted to more comments on the office space, or we just move into the financials, or.
Oh, you're going to talk about it then. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when Bill was sorry, whenever he gets in, I just happened to see that and didn't want to overlook that, because obviously that comes out of the capital that we've been allocated.
Yes. Vice Chair Watson, did you have any other comments about this office space?
Other than, well, it sounds like Bill has looked into the Jefferson School. I think he was looking at a particular space, though, as opposed to maybe an office, more of a space for the day kind of thing. You happen to know whether the city still owns that building?
The city does not own that building. They do lease some space in that building.
Okay, so by default, I guess we're more likely to, because the other location you just mentioned, isn't that a city property where the parking garage and all that, is that where that, or where is that located again that you said?
The office of Human Rights is right around the corner from the city space.
Right. Okay, and the parking garage building.
Yeah.
More or less. Does the city own all of that whole entire? Yeah, I think that's city property. Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair, the city is reconfiguring where Bashir's restaurant was next to the post office. And there, I think I understood, Mr. Aguilar, do you know that Human Rights was going to move into there, and then that would free up the space right next to city space?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, sir?
Yeah, it was my understanding that the city owns the space that was Bashir's restaurant right there next to the post office on the mall, just slightly west of the post office, and that Human Rights was going to move into that space when it's finished, and then that would free up their space up the steps next to a city space for our use.
Correct.
Was that your understanding?
Those were the plans that were originally communicated to me, but then there was discussion about moving to that other space where the recruitment office is. So I'm not sure.
Got it.
If we go to where the Human Rights is right now, there will be no cost associated with that. If we go to the other office space, then we will have to spend some money on rental fees for that. Okay, Ms.
Well, I was gonna say, would your office be in there? Like, would you move from where you are currently?
Yes, that would be the office.
That's
correct.
the plan.
Okay, I'll move on. There are no further questions about that to the financial discussion. Um, here's the budget to actuals. If you recall, and we talked about this last fiscal year, there's also the sort of savings that we have. It's a one-time allocation that the city council made to the board. That's not reflected in this. That's just a little shy of $200,000. This is your regular annual budget. So this is where we are right now with our annual budget for this fiscal year. To Mr. Brown's question, I have been approved for a management analyst. This was something that I expressed even prior to taking this role, that this is not the sort of role that one person can do. There's a lot of different components to this role. It took me about a year worth of discussion to get to a place where it was formally approved, and it will be a place on the hiring site. From a discussion today from one of our co-workers in the human resource department, they gave me a draft posting, and the range that we've been approved to use for this position is I believe, this is not exact figures, but it's between 48,000 to 70,000, depending on experience and credentials. So that's something that's within the range that we'll use for this hiring of this position. Plus, also you have to account for the benefits that are associated with this role.
And how much are those expected to be?
The benefits, I believe it's anywhere between 40 to 50,000. I think that's rough estimate of where that range is.
So you're saying 80 to 120,000 coming out of the 200,000 that we already have?
I'm sorry.
Coming out of 360 is what we've got.
Right.
Well, the 360 accounts for your salary already, correct, and your benefit. So if you're, I think last year we were talking at when it's all said and done, we had about 200 of operating that's left over. So if we have the 200 of operating, and we're looking at this role, which is between 80 to 120 out of that 200.
Right, it'll be out of that 200, correct.
So you're saying what, 120? So we could potentially have between 120 to 80,000 to do the actual work that we're supposed to do.
That's correct. And that's actually something that when they passed the ordinance last year, there's a section there that talks about financial fiscal impact to the city council. And at that time, the way it was drafted, Lisa included that there was no immediate fiscal impact in passing the ordinance, but there will need to be a readjustment or reallocation to be able for the board to be able to carry out its duties. So right now you have a budget that's made for the Police Civilian Review Board, but you're going to be operating the Police Civilian Oversight Board. And so your budget is going to need to be adjusted at one point or another. And that's something that you have to engage City Council about. Chair Watson, I see your hand raised. Is that from before?
No, that's user error.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. The in-person, the next item on my section was the in-person meetings, which we just discussed with Ms. Hudson. The last segment is the NACO conference is coming up. Again, it's being offered in person, one section of it, and virtually the other section. I'll be attending next week. The theme for this in person in Fort Worth, the theme is for this year's co-creating public safety through civilian oversight of law enforcement and community partnerships. I actually I'm co-facilitating a section. It's called Navigating Your Region, where we're going to be able to get the different stakeholders and the different practitioners from the different geographical regions and discuss what are some events of interest to the larger community and talk about how we can build community as oversight practitioners. In the virtual conference, one of the proposals that I submitted along with with our colleagues around the state was accepted. So we'll be presenting it virtually on October 26th in a panel titled Oversight in the Old Dominion, the Past, Present, and Path Forward for Civilian Oversight in Virginia. That panel is going to include representation from the Fairfax County, Arlington County, Charlottesville, and the group in UVA, the Police Review Board, who are in the early stages of trying to establish civilian oversight on that campus. Also of interest for NACO, I submitted my candidacy to be considered for a board member at large for one of the positions. There's 6 of us, and there's only 3 positions, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I'll report good news, but if not, then I'll try next time. So, and I believe those are all the elements within my section. The report again is on the website if you're interested in reviewing it, and also the other sections of the website to include the PCOB cases and the training materials, which we discussed last meeting. Your Microsoft Teams version is all the training materials that are there are listed in a PDF format with the links for the members of the public to be able to access. So all the links and everything that you have access to in Microsoft Teams, that's also available on our website.
Okay, before we move on to the next item, an issue that Hansel and I have discussed briefly today. With these 2 outstanding review requests, we maybe should start thinking about scheduling them because, you know, we don't want them to linger forever and ever. The first case, you know, the Weaver case, is a little bit special in that it might be that the board would consider not holding a hearing. And Hansel and I have discussed criteria for not holding a hearing, making a decision based on the record. And I have suggested to him that, again, and this is allowed under section 2459A of the 2021 ordinance. I suggested that he might put together such criteria and that at our next meeting, we could discuss them and perhaps make a decision on how we want to proceed on this case. Am I doing justice to your thinking, Hansel?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is more or less what we discussed.
Okay. And with regard to Ms. Hepler's three cases, again, my thought was that this is going to be a relatively complex review in the sense that we have to look at presumably 3 different IA reports, 3 different sets of evidence, 3 different sets of body-worn camera footage, and that we might want to have a special meeting to do that toward the end of October. Now, Hansel, are we on track for getting access to the IA information, or what's the deal there?
For excuse me, for which case are you inquiring about?
For Hepler.
We have not, so that's something that once you're interested in reviewing the case, then we have to make the notification to internal affairs, and they'll be able to start that process. Uh, in terms of readiness, though, is this something that the board feels like they can docket at this time, or is this something that they would like to consider being able to review anything that they may feel would get them to the place where they're confident in doing this review hearings, or where are we with that in terms of readiness with the board?
That's a good question. My own experience was that the proposal was a very good sort of general introduction to what's involved and to the various procedural and legal issues, and that what the major time consuming element in this case will be the actual review of the evidentiary materials. And again, is this, I think it would be very useful for us to make a formal request to get that information as quickly as possible. Once we get the information, perhaps we'll be in a better shape to actually schedule a hearing.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we're making a request for both of the pending cases, and then we'll determine whether there'll be a need for a hearing?
Or on the first case, on the Weaver case, and then we'll decide when to docket the Heckler case.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we have another item on our agenda now, item 8, town hall meeting. I would hope that most of you, if not all of you, have taken the time to look over the website that council has forwarded with this. We need, if we're going to have a town hall meeting, which could be a listening session or a session to address specific issues, we need to start planning it right now. The idea of the pie in the sky was sometime in early November as being a good time for this. But in order for that to happen, we need to have someone who's willing to take the lead. And if you look at the committee, and if you look at the website, what they point out is, the two most important things that you need to do are A, figure out what your objectives are. Why are you holding this town hall meeting? That really makes it a lot easier. And 2, to start getting buy-in from the major stakeholders that you want to have involved. I am willing to work on this process, but I don't think I have time to actually be the lead on it. If there's anyone else who wants to, think about the town hall meeting and start working towards something in November, I would be very happy to accept their volunteering. All right. Well, let me think about it. I'll put together a list of objectives, and then maybe I'll draft somebody or try and twist somebody's arm to be a co-leader on our having a town hall meeting. If no one has any objections. Okay, and I also wanted to bring you up to speed on progress on the operating procedures, which I think is quite encouraging. Last time we spoke of having the our independent counsel and the city attorney together work out the important legal issues associated with the procedures, and iron things out as the best they can, and then sort of come back to us with any outstanding issues. Good news, Ms. Robertson has agreed to review in detail the operating procedures and get back to us by Monday. And that, I think, is an excellent sign of progress. Depending on, she says, "Oh, these are really good," or "Oh my God, they're terrible." There may be more work to do, but this is definitely going forward. And she's even stated that she thinks it's very reasonable for us to get this on the city council document early in November. So, yay. Any questions, comments? Okay, the next item is our second public comment period. Mr. Aguilar, see if anyone wants to speak to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'd like to speak to the PCOB, please click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. If you're joining us via telephone, press *9. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes. Please share your place of residence when you begin.
Okay, I don't see any hands going up. Anyone have any comments for the good of the board? I will entertain a motion. Oh, yes. Yes, Bellamy.
I make a motion
To
adjourn.
Is there a second? We got a second.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Frazier. Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Cooper?
Yes.
Member Frazier?
Yes.
Chair Mendez?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Watson?
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.